I'm Katie, and welcome back to the Dragon Horde, just a pocket of the internet where we're just a little bit too obsessed with dragons. Over on my Patreon and on here, I post about dragon books, dragon lore, dragon history, just pretty much all things dragons. And I also post templates, so if you have any interest in those, I do make those as well for like Bookstagram and things. But today we're going to do a book review. We're going to talk about Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey, which is the first book in the Dragon Riders of Pern series. This book was first published in 1968, so we are discussing a book that is 56 years old, so this will get very interesting. It is the first of like 24 full-length novels and 2 collections of short stories. So this world is huge. I mean, absolutely huge, which is a lot. I really need to start reading like in-depth blurbs of what I'm about to read, because I have this really bad habit that I'll go, ooh, it's got dragons, and I'll just jump straight into it, and that does not always end well. So I've got to start doing better about that. I did not do that for this. All I knew going into this was the, like, Anne McCaffrey is the mother of all Dragon Rider books. And with that, I just jumped right in. I'm like, it's got dragons. So yeah, Dragonflight is a sci-fi fantasy that takes place on the planet of Pern. So we've actually got like I guess you could call a solar system out somewhere. Dragon Riders, it's like an ancient practice in their society that doesn't seem to garner the same respect that it once did at this point of time. The Dragon Riders are on a search across Pern to find Werewoman. They must find a woman to bond with the new Dragon Queen as she's about to hatch. So we meet up with Lessa of Ruatha, who has been biding her time, waiting for her opportunity to like take Ruatha back for her family, because her father was like the original lord over that hold. Only as she attempts to, she's chosen in the search, and the Dragon Queen does hatch to her and bonds with Lessa, making them both queens. Lessa takes on the responsibility of running the weirs without any reward of being bonded with a dragon. She doesn't, like, she gets to talk to her dragon, she like oils her dragon and keeps her clean, has that relationship with her dragon, but queens don't fly. More on that later. Various things start to unfurl. Firstly, there isn't enough supplies and food to keep the weir going, so to feed all of the dragons and humans that are there, because the dragons don't hunt, they're just fed livestock. And the only place to get what they need is from the holds. So then there's another planet that's got an odd orbit in this same solar system, and it is nearing once again, even though not everybody believes that it exists. And the threat of threads looms. Threads kind of fall off of the red star onto Pern. It's like a non-sentient organism that falls upon Pern, and it consumes organic matter and can only seem to be killed off by fire, which is where the dragons come in. The dragons, when they eat firestone, can breathe fire, and historically have been what have kept the threads at bay. Only it has been so long, information has been forgotten and must be relearned to protect Pern. From here on out, there will be spoilers. Yes, I am reading a book from 1968. It is 56 years old. With that, yes, I am going to look at this book through a modern lens, because it's 56 years later. Things are very obviously written differently, believed differently, like, it's different now. And none of this is hate to like Anne McCaffrey. She is the reason we have so many Dragon Rider books today. Like, yeah, somebody eventually would have done it, but she was the first. And so like there is still that like, okay, well, she did do it first, and I love that a woman did do it first. So there's a lot of nuance to have here of like, there's some like misogyny definitely going on in Dragonflight, but at the same time, I'm really grateful for Anne McCaffrey for like putting this idea with fantasy out in the world. She is actually on the chair. Like, what is she doing? Okay, we're gonna start off with Lessa, because Lessa, she's the descendant of the original lord of Ruatha. She's like our female main character. She's the sole survivor of this hostile takeover, so she lost her entire family. Only when she does get her chance to take everything back, she of course is chosen in the search. Lessa is such a conundrum to me, because she's meant to be like this strong female character, but she comes off as like weak, and she's really poorly treated through a lot of it by the men around her. And it's just really frustrating. So the guy that like took over Ruatha, Fax, he is one of the most hated characters I have ever read. So Fax keeps like tons of women around him under his control, keeping them, a lot of them pregnant. But his wife is actually pregnant when we get to this point. So this is like his actual lineage. And she gives birth, and next thing you know, this like dragon man that's like shown up with this like search kills him in battle because of something Lessa said. And then like Lessa is then taken away to the weir and the hatching ground with the other women. And of course, the women are scared and whimpering, but Lessa, she's not like other girls. Like that all happens in this first portion of the book. But I'm just gonna read this quote because she's not like other girls. Loud screams and wailings diverted Lessa, and she saw more dragons descend to hover just above the cavern floor, each rider depositing a young woman until there were 12 girls, including Lessa. Why are we saying girls? These are women, aren't they? She remained a little apart from them as they clung to one another. She regarded them curiously, contemptuous of their tears, although her heart was probably beating no less rapidly than theirs. It did not occur to her that tears were any help. The girls were not injured in any way that she could see, so why such weeping? Her contempt of their bleeding made her aware of her own temerity, and she took a deep breath against the coldness within her. Let them be afraid. She was Lessa of Ruatha and did not need to be afraid. So this society has already like shown that women are lesser in a way. Like they are. They seem to be like lesser in society. And she's sitting here surrounded by dragons after all these women have been taken from their homes and have dragons looming overhead, and they're just like they've essentially been kidnapped from their home because they're told, you have to come with us. And you know, if I had never seen a dragon a day in my life, like I would also probably be crying and being like, what the fuck? But no, she's not like the other girls. So she's not scared. She's not scared. Her heart's beating just as fast, but she's not scared. But the sexism in this book is just completely unparalleled. Like I've talked about how Fax has all of these women. And then like this guy, the dragon man who's like in charge, because their names aren't like, once you're a dragon rider, you don't have like a normal name. It's like a letter apostrophe more of your name. So this guy is Falar, and you have like, that's how all the names are. I don't understand the significance of that because it's not really explained. So, but he was in charge of his part of the search. He's the one that kills Fax and takes Lessa. But God, I despise that man. Oh my God. I will have plenty. But we skip 2 turns. They call years turns in this. And it's been 2 years since Lessa bonded with the Green Dragon, Ramoth. Ramoth's fully grown, but Lessa's not allowed to ride her. Like they literally tell her, Queens don't, what do you mean? What do you mean queens don't ride? Queens don't fly? They're like, no, the queen doesn't fly at all. She only flies to mate, which, oh my God. So she's got this beautiful bond with this dragon, and she is not allowed to fly her or be with her or do the things that dragon riders do. Of course she goes behind their backs and does it anyways. They are forced to teach her how to fly properly. So that's a whole thing, which I thought was really funny. But you know, Ramoth does fly to mate. That happens. And as she does, Lessa pretty much jumps Falar after she was like pretty adamant that she didn't like him. The mating passion of the 2 dragons at that moment spiraled wide to include Lessa. A tidal wave rising relentlessly from the sea of her soul flooded Lessa. With a longing cry, she clung to Falar. She felt his body rock firm against hers, his hard arms lifting her up, his mouth fastening mercilessly on hers as she drowned deep in another unexpected flood of desire. So the dragon the dragon whom the Dragon Queen mates with, that rider then becomes the weir leader, who's like in charge of all the dragon riders. So yeah, if I had a nickel for every time dragon riders get turned on when their dragons are doing it, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice, right? But no, yeah, Falar is now the weir leader, and his attraction to Lessa like really concerns me. Because he's an asshole most of the book. Just the way he speaks and the way he acts, you're just like, why is anybody attracted to this man? It makes 0 freaking sense. To the point when he first brings her back to the weir, she hasn't bathed in like a decade. He goes, you wash up. Pretty, yes, almost pretty, he allowed with such amused condescension in his voice that she pulled roughly away from him, piqued. His low laugh mocked her. How could one guess, after all, what was under the grime of 10 full turns, I would say? Yes, you are certainly enough to placate Fëanor. Fëanor is his brother. Is this my first bully romance? Because I've attempted Zodiac Academy. I've actually read quite a few of those. Is this just the first bully romance? Like, what the hell am I reading? And then later on, he finds her asleep, and like later in the book, and he just, in his mind, he's like, she looked fragile, childlike, and very precious to him. If I know this is 56 years ago, I know this is 1968, but I really don't like how much she's compared to being childlike and looking like a child and delicate and petite. Like, it really, I get it. Maybe that was just, you know, that was the look of the time, what you wanted to look like, what you found attractive. Yeah, 2024, that's not how that works. That would not fly in this day and age. I do not think that would work now at all. Not even Pern is worth losing you or Ramoth. Lessa, don't you dare disobey me in this. His voice dropped to an intense, icy whisper, shaking with anger. There's also another portion of this book where she figures something out and something that she's going to do, and she starts shaking and crying because all she can think about is, Fëanor's going to shake me with anger and just be so pissed off at me. Like, she's like literally trying to do what she can to save everybody and do the right thing, but she's scared that he's going to be upset with her. I don't like him. I don't like him. But we get past the bonding and the mating and even more into the political intrigue at this point, because it's a little confusing. The writing style was understandable, but there were parts that I'm like, what the hell is going on? But at one point, the Lords, they march on the Weir to pretty much attack them, and they're mad that they've had supplies and food taken from them, because Lessa does this whole thing where they go and they take the food from the holds without really asking. The answer to this is to kidnap all of the Lord's wives and hold them on the dragon back and be like, okay, you'll get your wives back when you give me supplies and food. It's a choice and it worked, but I'm just kind of sitting here like, dude, did you really just, I kidnapped your wives. I will say the dragons are really enjoyable in this. I do, like, it's the best part of it is the dragons, because the humans are kind of insufferable, I'm gonna be honest. They communicate with their riders, except Lessa is able to talk to all dragons, which is not normal. It's actually very rare that she can talk to all of the dragons, that even not just the ones she's bonded with. And they were actually bred to help protect Pern. In the beginning, we have these dragons named for the mythical Terran beast they resembled had two valuable characteristics. They could get from one place to another instantaneously, and after chewing a phosphine-bearing rock, they would emit a flaming gas. Because the dragons could fly, they were able to char thread in midair and then escape from its ravages. So they are bred to do this. They're created to do this. And then there's various colors of dragons, but some are better than others. For example, Ramoth, the queen dragon, is gold. But if she were to consume Firestone, she'd turn into a lesser dragon, because there's a part where Lessa tells her, you chew Firestone and you're reduced to a silly green, Lessa told her weirmate. This book mainly talks about just the green, bronze, and brown dragons, and of course Ramoth, who is gold. I'm not really sure about like a hierarchy here, but they have the ability to go between. Like I said, they call it between, where they go, I guess, between space, to go from one place to another. Like, I guess there's a between you need to go through, so they can travel instantaneously between known locations. The weirdest part is they seem to produce like bees. The queen dragon is like the only female and mates with the other dragons to produce more and more eggs, and she can give birth to, of course, more queen eggs, so that they keep doing that. So they produce like bees. And it's interesting. We finally get to the main conflict of the novel, and it feels like at this point that there's been so much time wasted. But the first half of the book feels to be just all the world building, which I guess is to be expected. And just the men being the absolute worst and women being subservient, because that's needed apparently. But not Lessa. She's not like other girls. Many don't actually believe the thread is going to come back. They think the Red Star is a myth because it's been so many years since this has happened that it's just folklore. So they have to like actually convince the old weir leader and like other people that like, no, we actually have to do this. This is really important. Meanwhile, Lessa, while riding the dragon she's not supposed to be allowed to ride, finds out that dragons can also go between time. They can go between time and space because she traveled back and saw herself when Fax was starting to his advance to kill her family. So yeah, that's got to be a fun time. So, and once they have this figured out, they're like, oh, well, we need more dragons to like to fight the thread that's gonna come and, you know, kill us all, because that's what thread does. The big problem is they need more dragons and more dragon riders to really fight the thread, because it's a formidable foe. They do not have enough numbers because people have lost faith in the weir, so they haven't really been, you know, upholding their end of the bargains, like giving them the supplies, which is why the whole like supply thing happened. But they also don't believe in them anymore, so they aren't putting their sons up to be like, I want my son, like my son wants to put himself up to, you know, be a dragon rider and things like that. They just don't seem to care as much. And so the weir's now like, well, we need you guys now. We need more people. We need more dragons. So the of course has her litter, her first litter, I guess litter, is that what you call it? Her first set of hatchlings. But these take time. It took her 2 years to get to full growth, and the threads are coming, you know, like now. But once Lessa figures out that, oh, the dragons can travel through time, he's like, all right, we're going to go to this island that's been like just left for 400 years and to see if it's regrown after like the threads have destroyed it, and it does. So he decides to send his brother and like a specific number of dragon riders and one of the queen, and the queen egg did actually hatch from Ramoth, and send them 10 years back in time to grow those dragons and those riders and train them so that they're ready for the right time. How this didn't end in a like complete time paradox, I do not know. But of course, in the years that Lessa's not allowed to ride Ramoth or do anything, she's just been kind of like reading, teaching ballads, learning history, things that she didn't have access to as a child because she was in hiding. Her thought is, she's like, hey, there's this like time period randomly in our history where the weir just all disappeared. They're gone. Where did they go? And after she's seen like that she can travel back in time and all these different things, she's like, hey, I think we went back in time and got help from this weir, and they left because they weren't needed in that time. There was no threat of the thread, but they had a really, really strong weir at the time. So she's like, we should go back and like bring them here. And of course Flar's like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. I forbid you of this. That was his whole thing. He's like shaking with anger and like an icy whisper and telling her, don't you dare. Of course she does that anyways. She travels back 400 years and you know, tells these people, hi, I need your help. I need your help. Do you all want to travel in time 400 years in the future and help me? And they do. They travel. They do it a different way than she did, because what she did actually exhausted her. And they travel to the future and they do the help and all of that. But they're in like conversation with Falar and these other like dragon riders or whatever. And of course, one of the queen came back with her too. And it was just so freaking funny, because there's this whole moment where they're like, what do you mean the queen doesn't fly? What are you talking about? The queen does fly. Like, there's another queen dragon and these men that are like the other weird leader from the 400 years ago. This is seriously a crazy book. It's like, no, queens fly. What do you mean you don't let your queen fly? Like, they were really actually like shocked, and they thought it was hilarious. They're like, are you crazy? Why are you not? What are you doing? But yeah, this was a wild book. I don't even know how that's all that happens really, is all this stuff with just the dragons and everything else, and just men being horrible, and the way they speak, and it's just a lot of misogyny. There is a lot of misogyny in this, and just like I would say some internalized misogyny. But like I said, this book is 56 years old. While I don't want to look at it through the lens of what it was 56 years ago, in modern times, I do not think this would fly very well. But there were some really great lines in this that I really, really loved, like from the standpoint of like the dragon side of things. Like you have this one, a feeling of joy suffused Lessa, a feeling of warmth, tenderness, unalloyed affection, and instant respect and admiration fled mind, heart, and soul. And this is when she's first bonding with Ramoth as she's hatching, and I thought that was really, really beautiful. And then later it's Lessa stood caressing the head of the most wonderful creature of all Pern, fully prescient of troubles and glories, but most immediately aware that Lessa of Pern was weirwoman to Ramoth, the golden, for now and forever. So there's these really, really beautiful moments that she has with her dragon, and it just, I don't know, it's kind of disappointing what it ended up being, because then you have the men. Each rider held a lady on the neck of his dragon. Sassoon held his group aloft, but close enough so the lords could identify each scared or hysterical woman. They literally kidnapped women. I mean, I know it worked, but why? Just why? But all in all, it's an intriguing story. There's 24 books, so I don't know. I'm curious if I should do more with this series, simply because I've seen like the timeline, because while this is the first book, it's not the first chronologically, which doesn't surprise me. So I don't know how this wasn't just one big paradox, essentially. But there's also the Dolphins of Pern. I'm just really curious how we go from space dragons that burp fire to dolphins. But we do. So, I don't know. Do you want to know more about the rest of the series? Because I could turn this into a series. Me reading this 24 book long series. It'll take a while because I'm not reading them all right away. But yeah, if you're curious and want more of this, comment below. Tell me, do I keep this going? Because it's weird. Yeah, solid 2 stars. And it's all for the dragons. Solid 2 stars. Thank you so much for sticking this out and watching, and just a big shout out to all of my patrons, my little wyverns, Ainsley, Becca, and Sammy, and my whimsical worms, Sarah and Jessica. Thank you guys so much every month. And if you'd like to get early access and all of the templates that I make without having to pay the full price, you can go and, subscribe to my Patreon. There's multiple tiers, and there's a lot of stuff coming. 2025, I think, is going to be an amazing year for my content. So thank you so much. Please subscribe and follow, and